Listen up, brother. If you're tired of subpar audio on your computer, Switch, or PlayStation, hell yeah, brother. You need to get yourselves a Creative SoundBlaster X3. Stay tuned, we're going to talk about it, brothers.
Hi guys, as you saw from the video and thumbnail, we're here to talk about this guy. This is the Creative SoundBlaster X3. The good folks at Creative were kind enough to send this my way for review, so we're going to go ahead and talk about it. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what the difference between this and all the other Creative sound cards that I've done reviews on it. And the simple fact of the matter is this one, far and away, is the most advanced out of all of them. This utilizes the latest generation of Creative's proprietary technology. They call it Super X5, and it's stereo holographic imagery. And what does that mean in plain simple English? Well, it means that you take a photo of your face, take a photo of both of your ears, and Creative maps your face and, in theory, maps the distance between your ears and your overall ear shape so that it gives you the experience of listening to music in a room versus listening to headphones. There was a similar app around for a long time on mobile devices called Can Opener that kind of did the same thing without the imaging. So it's not exactly the same, but the end goal was essentially the same. Now, the nice thing about this device is it has actual dedicated speaker output jacks on the back. Not speaker wires, but TRS style connectors. And you've got one for your center sub channel, your fronts, your rears, and your side. Now, you've also got a line in, you've also got a traditional mic, and you have a headset jack. Now, the headset jack can use TRRS or TRS connectors just fine. Now, if you're using a headset like I typically would use, and you're using like a mod mic or something that doesn't have a dedicated mic with a TRRS connector, you're going to have to use the microphone in on the front and the headphone jack. Now, if you're using a headset right now, like a lot of us are, that has a TRRS connector, you can plug into the headphone only, and that will work as the mic as well. Now, let's talk some specs, nerdy specs. Dynamic range, 115 decibels. 7.1, like I said, it's got all the jacks on the out, so if you have a 7.1 system, it can do 7.1. It has an optical audio for your PCM audio. If you wanted to do optical, you can do that. Has direct mode like all the other Creative devices. Now, this device will output audio at a bit depth of 32 bits. It also has a sampling rate of 192,000 hertz. So you'll have very high resolution audio from this device. Now, your inputs are 24-bit, 192,000 hertz. That's the best they can do, which that's phenomenal. That's industry standard. I'm not poo-pooing it because it's not 32-bit input. That's kind of pointless. Now, you're probably wondering why 32 bits for the output if it's only 24-bit. Now, this might not sound super scientific, but I can tell you firsthand from experience, this sound card has far better left and right channel separation compared to the previous SoundBlaster cards that I've done reviews on. It's noticeable. Now, especially when doing turntable listening, monitoring the audio, as well as recording it all in one go, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop some of that here in the video so you can listen to what it sounds like on the line in from my turntable straight in lossless and wave. Now, YouTube will compress the audio down, so hopefully it carries through. I don't want to get in any licensing trouble, so I can't share it's recorded in like a lossless file underneath because it's not transformative. It would basically just be sharing. We're not doing that. This is talking about how good the sound card's recording interface is. Now, this device also supports some other Creative technologies. Obviously, it's a Creative device, but it has Scout mode on it, and it has Crystal Voice for cleaning up voiceover using the input. it actually works really well. It makes what would normally be kind of a muddy voice through like a Skype call or any type of Discord chat or something like that come through really clear. This device is also powered by USB-C, and you can connect your phone to it via Bluetooth to change settings. So if I'm running my Switch through it, for instance, I don't want to run the audio on the TV, I just want to run from the sound card, pop some headphones in. It actually works really well for that. I can change the EQ and stuff from the phone, change some settings, things like that. On a computer, you do it through the software, obviously. So we're going to hop on the computer, I'm going to show it to you, then I'm going to wrap it up and give you guys my final thoughts. So here we go. Now here we are on the software to control the device. You'll notice over here we've got our SBX profile, Super X-Fi, our EQ, Playback for changing bitrate recording settings, Scout mode, encoder, mixer, and this is where you would sign in for different feature sets. So we're going to go ahead and blur that guy out for you just so you can't see my full name. And yeah, and then you've got overall settings. So we're going to go ahead and start with the SBX profile. What is the SBX profile? Basically, this is your acoustic engine. When you change through the different settings on here, it does different things with the acoustic engine. So you can also change it to be specifically for headphone or for your speakers, which is kind of nice because you can swap the inputs on the fly by holding down the SBX button. And you'll notice in the left-hand corner down here, it's switched over to headphones just by me holding down the button to switch between the different modes. I really dig that. It's kind of a nice feature, makes things nice and simple. When you click down on the top button, it mutes the audio. When you unclick it, it unmutes it. It's also noted that the light blinks blue when muted, and then if you push the mic button, you can adjust your mic volumes, things like that. The control wheel turns red when you're adjusting that. And as I said, I don't use a lot of these features, but the Smart Volume and the Dialogue Plus come in very handy when you're watching movies late at night. Let me tell you, it just makes life so much better. You're not getting deafened. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off for now. This is the Super X5. So here is the Super X5 signed into the account, which you have to use on the mobile app when you set it all up to map your head. Pro tip, map your head, have somebody help you. It just makes life so much easier. Doing it by yourself, trying to get the phone in the right position, kind of a pain in the butt. Select your headphones. You've got a lot of options in here, and I do mean a lot of options. However, my headphones are not in here. Mine are the Mastrop HD 5.9X Jubilees, I think, and you go, oh, well, that would be the 5.9.8s. But they're not. They're a different driver. They're more akin to like an HD 600, but not quite a 660S. They're somewhere in the middle as far as drivers go, but close enough. You can play with these and experiment and choose different ones. I have found that I'm somewhere in between here. I've also found that the Mastrop HD 6XXs work really well as far as like the dynamic range not being too pushed in the low end or too scooped out of the top end or what have you. They're actually pretty good. But I like to leave it on the HD 650. So, as I said, this is hardware driven. This isn't done with software. This is all hardware, and it really only works on the headphones. You can't do it on speakers. It's hardware encoded. So the only way for me to show you what it would sound like, which if you're watching this on a desktop, you wouldn't get the experience, would be for me to loop the audio back into itself, and you would basically be hearing my head mapping through your ears with the wrong driver. So it's not something you can demo, it's something you have to experience. Now, I found this to be nice if you're going to commit to it and listen to audio with that in mind, with the Super X5 turned on. If you're bouncing back and forth between regular mode and Super X5 on, it's jarring. I heard one reviewer liken it to listening to somebody speak to you through one of those PVC tubes at a playground. And at first that does strike you like that, just because it kind of brings vocals and, you know, dialogue dead center in the 3D space. So it sounds like you're talking face to face with a person. You do lose some of that stereo with certain things, but gain it with other elements in the mix. It's really a trip. You just got to experience. Take my word at it. It does do what they market it as. It's why it's won so many awards, but it might not be your cup of tea. So keep that in mind. It can be award-winning and amazing, but it still may not be your cup of tea. Now here we have all of our EQ modes. Now the EQ modes can be changed by pushing the mode button on the device, as I'm doing right now, to turn them off and enable your presets that you've done. So as you can see, I made just a full flat preset, several full flat presets as a matter of fact, just to kind of play with it and see what we've got. But yeah, that's the equalizer device in here. All right, so here we are in Playback. Pretty straightforward. This is where you can change your direct mode. All direct mode is disables everything. Now the problem with direct mode is if I'm using audio monitoring, like a line in, for instance, and I'm trying to listen to audio while recording it in Audacity, in my experience from messing with this thing for about 30 minutes, I couldn't get it to work in direct mode for that. Not really a big deal. It's just something I noticed. I couldn't get it to work with Audacity and listening to it in real time. Not a deal. Not a big deal, though. Down here is where you select your audio quality. So as you see, I've got 32-bit, 192 kilohertz, so 192,000 hertz. Your filters for phase, fast roll off, minimum phase. That's typically how I run it. If you want more information, this is all they give you, which doesn't help. Let me tell you. So if you don't know a lot about audio and you're like, I have no idea, leave it on fast roll off, minimum phase. You can experiment with the different ones and just find what suits you, but I find fast roll off, minimum phase is just fine. Now, when you do set it up to be optical, which mine is not set up, I don't typically run optical, it's bit-to-bit streaming for a 16-bit, 48,000 hertz PCM data signals. The max you can set it to in this controller, if you don't want bit-to-bit, is only 24-bit. So I'm running it in the analog configuration so I can get my 32-bit action going on, brother. All right, here we are. Recording. Here we've got our voice clarity. You can change all of this to make life very nice for people on the other end of your call. You also have voice morphing, which, you know, I've found these to be fun to play with at best, but obnoxious to people in your Discord or anything else like that, because they'll hear you like that all the time. And while fun, maybe if I was 13 or 14, in my 30s, not my cup of tea. But no, that does work if you're just trying to remain anonymous in a voice in a game and you're not doing a voice chat with your buddies in, you know, Discord or whatever. I totally get it. Not my cup of tea though. But however, this crystal voice, this voice clarity, that is magic and really works. Now this is kind of tricky. When I came in here to other input for the line in, because as you know, I'd like to have my vinyl stuff so I can capture it in Audacity in the best quality I can. I couldn't get this to actually play any audio back, and I thought, well, maybe it's because underneath my volume settings, it was silenced. That's not the case. Right now, it's silenced just so you don't have to hear that very light hiss from the phono stage because there's no signal, so it's going to just make it have a hissy gain sound a little bit because there is no signal at the end of the needle. But this is basically where you can adjust your recording settings, volumes, things like that. I found that this is a sweet spot for capturing vinyl from my turntable without any hiccups or any peaks. This is like right near the threshold where we're getting real close to clipping, but we are not clipping. Follow your Windows default language. You can also check your device, reset it, check for firmwares, all that jazz, check for last updates, so on and so forth. Now let's go ahead and jump back to the main camera and we'll wrap this guy up. All right, we're back. What do we think? I think for 120 bucks, it actually delivers on what it's supposed to do. Like I said, I noticed the stereo separation far exceeds every other sound card I've used from Creative. This thing is fantastic. It gets all the nuance in the left and right channels without muddying them up, and that's without the Super X5. Now, what do I think of the Super X5? I think at first it's very jarring. You put it on, you map your ears, you select your headphones or a headphone that's similar to yours in the menu as I showed, and you give it a listen, and you listen, and I think the longer you sit and listen to it, and a lot of it depends on what you're listening to, but I think the longer you sit and listen to it, the more it sounds like somebody's in the room talking to you, if the room was maybe a little bit reflective as far as like the acoustic properties. It's not perfect. It's got some flaws. I noticed for very fast-paced stuff, like some very heavy metal, like Reptile from Periphery, it just becomes kind of a muddy mess in the mid-range, and that's not something you really want. And I don't know if it's just a combination of, you know, hardware compressor. It's all hardware driven, but I'm not sure how they're achieving that sound other than a little bit of left and right bleed with possibly some compression and maybe a little bit of like a reverb circuit or something like that in the device. Don't know, not a software or electric engineer. No idea. But what I can say is for certain things like movies, I found it to actually be really nice and kind of softened up the overall dips and peaks between dialogue and action. And that was the only thing I had on. I didn't use any of the SBX profiles. I just left it on flat acoustic properties for the device, let it run, turn that on, and just kind of sat and enjoyed it. And like I said, at first, not my cup of tea. After watching a couple movies, I think it actually does do what they say it's supposed to do. It sounds like you're immersed in the situation. In fact, for voice, if somebody's using a high bitrate Discord server, relatively high bitrate Discord server, and the other person has a really good mic, I've actually had to catch myself thinking somebody was in the room talking to me with my open-backed headphones. So it actually does do what it's supposed to do. It's just weird in the way with which it goes about doing that. Now, for those of you who know me also know that I don't like stuff coloring my sound too much when I'm listening to audio. I want to enjoy it in the purest form. I don't like setting up EQs, things like that. So the EQ features, while useful for many people, I'm not going to speak too much about them because I prefer not to use them. I prefer to listen to the audio the way in which the engineers chose for it to be mastered, mixed, and for the way Sennheiser chose my headphones to sound. Now, as for the other features, Scout Mode's amazing. You can hear footsteps, loot boxes, things like that in Call of Duty Modern Warfare from a mile away. You don't even have to guess and like walk up against the wall of a building in Modern Warfare. You can just turn Scout Mode on. Boom, you hear it. You know where it's at. You hear footsteps behind you. It's perfect. Perfect for first-person shooters. Things in Overwatch, it also works well. Helps you pinpoint which direction an ult's coming from. So if you hear an ult, you know which way it's coming from, even if it's behind you. It's very good at visualizing that in a 3D space. I typically don't run 7.1 virtualization or 5.1 in the headphones. Left and right channel seems to do just fine with that Scout Mode on. It does a good job of keeping everything visualized in a 3D space. All right, so yeah, that's going to do it for me. If you guys found this video useful, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Hit subscribe if you really dug it. Kind of bouncing between a couple different things, doing some guitar stuff, doing some audio stuff, technology stuff. Just doing whatever tickles my fancy right now. So if you guys want to see more of this stuff, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up if you liked this video. Thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me what you didn't like. Do my best to provide better content. As always, this is Chris. Thank you guys. Have a great night.